we will now gonna continue. Which, because oh yeah, because we were doing investigating undercover as basically just during the tourist thing, and we ran into younger Rika, young Rika-chan, from where we normally meet her. So, huzzah! The van stopped in the shrine's parking lot. Also parked there were numerous other vans with loudspeakers mounted on top of them to act as makeshift propaganda vehicles. At the on the side of each vehicle was scrawled, "The dam project must be demolished. Defend our homeland to the last. No Oyashiro-sama's anger." Or a slogan of a similar kind. They gave the feeling that even without using the loudspeakers, there was enough to overwhelm any onlookers. Vertical banners were erected in various places. The contents of those banners were similar. For all objections against the dam were crude insults towards the government. There were horizontal banners, placards, and so on and so forth. They proclaimed that without a doubt, this was the headquarters of the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance. For Rika-chan, however, this hectic place was also her home. Arrived. I'm home. Rika-chan crawled over my lap and exited the vehicle first. Makino had noticed that I was looking at protest banners. The shrine also has the offices of the anti-dam movement. For you, this probably brings back the memories of the anti-security treaty conflicts back in the day. Student movements against government policies, movements that bordered on terrorist activity, were at one time commonplace, if only in order to garner global attention. Students holding out in lecture halls, brawling with the riot squads that charged in. To an age when wasting one's youth like that was widely considered a road to glory. It was slightly before my time. Not really an activist or anything. I studied without incident and graduated without incident. I don't really agree with the violence or occupations they use to protest the government's policies. Oh? You have quite the nice opinion there. If you have an opinion on a policy, vote for the candidate who shares your view, or until the political world yourself, and assert your beliefs in a lawful manner. That is the foundation of democracy. I don't think that's something you should challenge with violence. Youngin, you have some fine beliefs. I saw that feeling of respect reflected in Makino's gaze. That moment, something tugged at my sleeve. I have no idea what Akasaka is saying. Rika-chan, feeling that she was the only one who didn't understand the conversation, had a look of displeasure on her face. That expression was so charming I had to keep myself from grinning like an idiot. It's often said that a father wants to spoil his daughter rotten. I think I understood that feeling very well. Sorry, it was a little bit hard for Rika-chan to understand, wasn't it? Japan is a peaceful country, so you have to argue your point in a peaceful manner. You shouldn't resort to violence, in other words. No matter how much I explained, the girl who was just boasting about being able to carry digits over when adding things probably wouldn't understand. Probably wasn't something to talk about in front of Rika-chan anyway. So then, Akasaka, how do you think we should keep our village Do you think we should keep our village from being flooded by the dam? Even if I regretted my careless words, it was too late now. Here I was at the main headquarters of an organization, telling them their way of doing things was illegal. Preaching that violence was not the answer. Complicated feeling had mixed itself in with the respect in Makino's gaze. It was then I finally realized it wasn't that simple. There wasn't a soul who would argue that what I was saying wasn't correct. Using violence to get one's way was something that everybody knew you shouldn't be proud of. However, right now, Hinamizawa was in a predicament that couldn't be overcome with peaceful means alone. The legality of the Hinami Down project, through the efforts of the various propaganda campaigns enacted by the Ongafuchi Defense Alliance, was being called into question. They further strengthened their campaign. They might be able to suspend or change the construction plan. But that was at the most just a possibility. The government proceeded with the construction as planned. Wouldn't it be long before this place was at the bottom of a lake? If it wasn't for the unrestrained resistance of the residents of Hinamizawa, this place might already have been underwater. Can't live anywhere else other than here. Can't live in the city. The words of this remarkably young girl were all too accurate, carrying with them the screams of the hearts and minds of the residents of Hinamizawa. Of course, there was nothing I could say to respond to that. I could only respond to Makino and Rika-chan's heavy words with silence. Sorry. This isn't a problem that an outsider should lightly just poke their nose into, is it? I apologize. Makino, unsure of how to reply for a while, could only laugh pointlessly. It's nothing that concerns guests that make their home somewhere else. You enjoy it here. Please tell all your friends that Hinamizawa is a wonderful place, please. Word spreads to dozens, maybe even hundreds of people, and that ridiculous plan to submerge this place at the foot of a dam will eventually fall apart. He followed that with a smile that said, please don't think much of it. Letting me not worry that much really was a stroke of good fortune. Becoming infatuated with the idea of making friends with a little girl had me completely forget my apprehension at being in enemy territory. Being reminded of this sight before I was going to step foot into their headquarters might have been a good thing. We hadn't had this exchange in the middle of their We'd had this exchange in the middle of their office. There was a short-tempered youth in there. They might have come at me. Thinking of how extreme they were in the worst case, my life could have been in danger. It seemed that I looked quite despondent at that moment. Makino, thinking he had said something wrong, became flustered trying to think of a way to improve my mood. I was a bit careless just now. Very sorry. No, don't worry that much about it. The sights you showed me around the village were all beautiful, wonderful places. I really do want to come here one more time. This beautiful village is going to be submerged at the bottom of a lake. I can understand why you would fight so desperately. I will manage to use my despondent look to change the topic in my favor. After a bit, Makino had returned to his usual high spirits. It seemed he believed I completely sympathized with his point of view. Oh no, let's leave the talk at that for now. The place around here with a really great view. Let's go, Akasaka. Rika-chan, seemingly happy to be free from all the boring and glooming adult talk, bounded up the stone steps. There was no real need to run, but in order to catch up with her, I also darted up the steps. There were several tents belonging to the town council erected on the shrine grounds. Inside the tents were several folding tables and chairs, and a number of the older town council members were livening things up with chit-chat. They weren't saying anything incendiary like the dam project must be destroyed. It was just some relaxed idle chit-chat between local geezers. The normal sort of calming scenery. The entrance of a shed that looked like a meeting place. There was a large sign erected with Onagafuchi Defense Alliance Headquarters, written in bold brushstrokes. That was their base of operations. To be honest, it was a bit of a letdown. If you asked what I had been imagining, This is a bit embarrassing, but I have thought it would be something much more dramatic. Barbed wire fences and barricades. My first impression of the place, though, was completely different from that. It looked like a simple backwater town hall. Didn't look like anything other than exactly that. The old folks who were chatting had noticed Rika-chan's presence. Well, if it isn't Rika-chama, it's time for little kids to head on home. This is my home. The old folks guffawed since she wasn't wrong. That exchange, I could tell that this Rika Furuta girl was loved by everybody. Akino-san, who is that? Tourist who phoned? That's right. This is the mayor of Hinamizawa, Mayor Kimiyoshi. He smiled brightly, but there was no mistaking he would be scary if he got angry. By the looks of things, this old man was the president of the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance, none other than Kiichiro Kimiyoshi himself. Welcome to Hinamizawa. What do you think? It's a quiet and relaxing place, isn't it? Yeah. Able to appreciate a multitude of beautiful places throughout the whole day. I'm thankful for being granted this rare opportunity. Though you're one of those youngins, you're quite the gentleman. Ichiro, want to show Akasaka a cool place. Thinking that the formalities between myself and the mayor had gone on for too long, Rika-chan butted in the conversation. For her to call the mayor by his first name. I felt it was a little strange, but none of the villagers seemed to mind. The girl of the Furuta household, one of the 3 families, was probably different than the average villager. Akasaka, over here! Rika-chan tugged at my sleeve. Not resisting, I allowed myself to be pulled over. And waiting for me was a magnificent view. This is amazing. It was an observation deck that looked down on the village. They, knowing that this was the best view in the entire village, kept quiet as I stood there awestruck. I was holding a camera. I had completely forgotten to even glance through the viewfinder. This view, no matter what kind of film it was printed on, wouldn't be able to show everything. There is a way to explain it. It would only be that what I would be able to put into words was such a breathtakingly spectacular view that I struggled to find a comparison. For a while, I was left awestruck. I could only stand there and wonder. Cool breeze helped to bathe the heat rushing through my body. That comfortable sensation also left me speechless. Rika-chan, who had been holding onto my sleeve the entire time, spoke. This is my favorite spot. As she said that, she showed me another adorable smile. That smile seemed very fleeting. You ask why? That was because the view from our favorite spot would eventually be submerged under the deep green waters of the dam reservoir. Just can't believe that this village is going to end up at the bottom of a lake. I said it quietly so that only Rika-chan could hear it. I regretted it as soon as I did. Those words were all too cruel. However, Rika-chan... Good grief, bro. Jeez. Wait to... Yeah. That, yeah. Open mouth insert foot right there. God. Both feet. In fact, she replied with a smile. Won't sink. The dam project will definitely go away. It's just like a little girl to say something like that. There was no basis for her saying so. It was just her wish. Akasaka, do you think that this village will be submerged? It's not that I want it to be. I knew how important the dam was. I knew it was necessary. I just wanted to recognize the sacrifices that would be made. I agreed with the project in general, but couldn't agree with some of the details. But it meant that this girl's beloved scenery would be taken away from her. I might be able to object to the dam. Might be able to ignore the interests of the nation, the development of Japan, all for the sake of one girl's smile. Not really much of a humanist, but sentimental of me. Won't be submerged, as the dam project will soon go away. Her words weren't just hopes and dreams, but were seasoned with a hint of resolve, as if she was talking about an unchangeably predetermined outcome. As surely as the sun rising in the east. It'll be gone soon? Wanting to ask her why she believed that, I turned around. Yes. Oh, goody a bot. Ah, there we go. I have bonked the bot. Wanting to ask her why she believed that, I just turned around. Yes. It'll be gone. What makes you say that? Well, you see, she seemed to want to answer, but as though unable to find the right words, she swallowed back what she was about to say. Regardless of what Akasaka does, the dam project will end this year. It's already been decided. That was a lie. If something like that had already been decided, then the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance would have no reason to continue existing. From my point of view, it was like they were doing nothing more than throwing themselves into an endless battle. Hello, Foxglove. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming by. They knew the dam project was cancelled. Would feel much more relaxed around here. This village, though, could hardly be called relaxed. For evidence of that, I just had to remember how charged the atmosphere was at the checkpoint, or at the bus stop. Thank you for the fluid check. The villagers with their misplaced resolve were still fighting. This girl, even knowing the villagers' grim resolve, had already declared their victory. The villagers throwing themselves into this endless war, and this optimistic girl who said they had already won. That contrast was somehow strange. Why do you think that? If you know something that makes you that confident, could you tell me? Rikichan stayed silent for a while, seemingly choosing what to say. Because... Because... She looked like she was lost on whether she could continue or not. As if she was troubled on whether it was okay for her to say it. That kind of expression. It's already been decided. There's no other way to say it. It's already been decided, huh? It really is just like a little girl to say something like that. I couldn't believe it was actually true. He was the only one saying such things with such confidence. My real mission that I had forgotten about during this fun-filled day resurfaced at the back of my mind. The kidnapping of the minister's grandson. Had the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance kidnapped the minister's grandson and already succeeded in negotiating the cancellation of the dam project? Did Kimiyoshi actually already know that and was just playing dumb? But was that what this girl was really telling me? Akasaka. Girl called out my name suddenly. What is it? Go back to Tokyo. Oh shit. Higurashi vibes are now incoming. From now on, whenever like something is like made a sudden turn to where no doubt this will be horrific and some really bad stuff feels like it may happen, just gonna be saying Higurashi vibes. It can be the channel in joke. Huh? Wasn't only surprised at the sudden command. Ever since I came to this village, I had never once mentioned I was from Tokyo. Based on my accent, she might have been able to guess where I was from. What was I getting so worked up over? What's the intake? Oh, like we can say we got the if something's just starting to take a vibe for what may well be like something horrific or something like that, terrifying, psychologically scarring or whatever. Higurashi vibes. Getting Higurashi vibe, folks. Higurashi vibes incoming. It was probably the sudden and complete change in her demeanor. You should definitely go back to Tokyo right away. If not, you will woefully regret it. The girl had been holding my sleeve the entire time. She'd been tugging at my sleeve, then hurriedly dragging me over to show me this wonderful view. But this was the adorable Rika-chan, who I'd spent the entire day with. There was no shade she would have been replaced with a doppelganger when I wasn't looking. She had been holding on to my sleeve this entire time, but somehow this girl was someone other than Rika-chan. She looked like Rika-chan, but she wasn't. She was some girl I had never met before. Okay, we got another... See, it keeps on showing up, this thing of, like, oh, this is a different person or stuff like that. Which, seriously, the frequency which it occurs, and that there's also been a couple other, like, incidents, is really making me think there's, like, something to this about doppelgangers or something like that, or maybe some sort of practitioners. And in Higurashi, that girl had told me in an indifferent voice that I would eventually regret coming to this village from the bottom of my heart. That would be an incredibly pathetic thing to see, so I thought I'd warn you right now. Why would I come to regret it? Stop whining. I couldn't believe that I was hearing such cold words from Rika-chan's mouth. I just couldn't believe it. Was somebody impersonating her? Using ventriloquism or something? Thinking that, I wanted to take a look around, but the girl's gaze had me pinned down, making me unable to move. When you tried crossing the road when the don't walk sign was up, did your parents finish explaining why it was dangerous before pulling you back to the sidewalk? They'd pull you back right away, wouldn't they? They'd pull you back before explaining why it was dangerous, wouldn't they? In other words, something like that. The girl I had spent time with, Rika Furude, would not speak like that. Would speak with a cuteness befitting her age, with brief, childish remarks expressing her emotions honestly. Thank you for the fluid check. She definitely wouldn't speak with such pointed words. I've warned you. Don't get the wrong idea. It's not like I'm saying this because I hate you. You don't need to tell somebody who's better off dead that they're in danger. Who are you? You're not Rika-chan. We have not seen this expression from her before. This expression, we have not seen it from her before. Which, one screenshot. Also, too. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. Tee hee hee hee. He also does not tee hee hee. I don't recall her ever tee hee heeing. As soon as I accused her of not being Rika-chan, she let out a strange, quiet giggle. It was a laugh not befitting a child of her age. It was like she was possessed by something. Oh my gosh, was I right? Or at least I'm not off the mark. Not far from the mark. Her change was just that, total and complete. Was Rika-chan being attacked by some terrifying phenomenon? Do. Phenomenon. Do. Phenomenon. Do. Sorry. That occult idea came to my mind without any sort of hesitation. Rika-chan is acting strange. Somebody, help. Thinking that I'd yell that, I turned to where the mayor was. I immediately realized he was looking at us with a smile. That's right. To him, it looked like nothing more than me and Rika-chan fooling around. He didn't notice that there was something terrifying happening to her. Hisaka is such a coward. The girl had obviously grasped that I was afraid. Noticing that and calling me a coward, she laughed again. That cackling girl, approaching me in a strange manner while still laughing, lost her balance and fell flat on her face. Rika-chan fell down. If it was just a while before, I extended a hand to help her up without hesitation. But now, extending a hand to this ominous girl, who looked like Rika-chan but wasn't, required a bit more courage than I had at the moment. Beep. The girl cried out thus. She then squirmed upright and dusted herself off. Afterward, she looked around restlessly as a blank expression crept across her face. Got to be kidding me. She making fun of me? That way of acting. It was as though, after being possessed by something, she had lost her memories of what happened. You're joking, right? Rika-chan? Meep. Meep. Wait. Meep. I don't know if Rika-chan had heard me or not. Just cried out like that, as if questioning herself. Hey, mister. Oh, wait. Okay, someone else. Hey, mister. Rika-chama too. Tea's ready. There's some snacks too, so please come and have some. An old lady wearing a smock was waving energetically from the entrance of the office. Hearing that there were snacks, Kichan's expression changed. Yay! Wait, I have something for this. This exact moment.
Yay!
Carefree smile was a familiar smile, the one that belonged to the embodiment of my ideal daughter. Any hint of the creepy girl that was just there, spouting sinister words, had vanished. Come on, Rika-chama. Wash your hands first. There aren't any manju here for dirty hands. I'll wash them real good. Meep. Rika-chan responded with vigor, running off to the washing station that was along the side of the office. She stopped halfway, turning around to call to me. If Akasaka doesn't hurry up, I'll eat a share of manju too. They're steaming fresh. Ah. People who don't wash their hands aren't allowed to eat any manju. No matter how you looked at it, that was Rika-chan. Those words and the way she said them, no matter how you heard them, they were definitely Rika-chan's. Come on now, mister. The adult here, so show her how it's done. The old lady urged me to wash my hands. Without any resistance, I lined up beside Rika-chan at the wash station. Splash. I stared at Rika-chan, intent on washing her hands properly, like she had probably learned at school. Eep? Did I do something wrong? Huh? By wrong, you mean how I'm washing my hands. I only got 4 gold stickers for it. Probably bad at washing my hands. You're not doing anything wrong. If you're washing them that carefully, that's more than enough. But it's not, Akasaka. If you don't use a brush and clean out the grit underneath your fingernails, you won't get a gold sticker. Ichan, you're very diligent. That's something to be proud of. Nipa! I was praised by Akasaka. No matter how you looked at it, it was Rika-chan. There was no trace of that girl from before. Exactly what was that sinister girl? Rika-chan, what was the meaning of what just happened now? Just now you told me go back to Tokyo, didn't you? Did I say that? I was at a loss for words. He didn't remember what that girl just now had said. Like I would ever believe something as occult as that could happen. Like, would ever believe that Rika-chan could be possessed by that strange girl and say those creepy things. Rika-chan, you definitely said that. Eep? Her expression told me that, despite my saying so, he had no idea. He wasn't playing dumb. She actually didn't know. Exactly what was that just now? Just as Rika-chan had, I let a look of confusion creep across my face. The two of us, both looking like we had no idea what was going on, must have certainly been a humorous sight to behold. While partaking of tea and snacks, I was shown a propaganda film shot by the Defense Alliance that highlighted their resistance efforts. Older folks talked passionately about how long and grueling the fight against the dam was. They fell on deaf ears. I was transfixed by Rika-chan, who had heard these stories countless times before and was nodding off. Eventually, Rika-chan noticed I was staring at her and smiled as she rubbed her eyes. That smile was Rika-chan's after all. There was no hint of that sinister shadow. After that, my unreasonable fear of Rika-chan lessened with the passing of time, but I could by no means forget what had happened. It eventually grew dark. The mayor said that they had prepared dinner, but I said I would come again tomorrow and took my leave. I had to return to the hotel and file my regular report with this section chief. I see. Well then, please come again tomorrow. If you phone, we'll send somebody to pick you up right away. I appreciate your hospitality. I'll probably come again and enjoy myself tomorrow. Yes, please do. Seems that Rika-chan has taken a pretty big liking to you. Akasaka, are you coming again tomorrow? I finish after 5th period, so if you could come at around 3 o'clock, that would make me happy. Please, come again. Please, come again. That pure smile urged me to do so. There wasn't a trace of that evil aura. Depending on what happened next, all that might end up as nothing other than my hallucination. Thinking about it logically, the daughter of the Furude house, one of the three families, had taken a liking to me, and this was a strong foothold for my investigation from here on out. It was like a free ticket for a reason to visit Hinamizawa. If only I could treat that little incident as the figment of my imagination, then having this girl who was the embodiment of my ideal daughter grow so attached to me wasn't bad either. I successfully dove into the belly of the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance and had the mayor as well as other important members of the alliance welcome me with open arms. This was a great turn of events. However, I still felt uneasy. Getting back to the hotel, I forced down an almost painfully cold beer until I could clear my mind. The shock from that incomprehensibly strange incident continued to torment me. Steve, new tips going smoothly, like rainy days, barley tea and black tea. Okay, so we finished the chapter. Okay, going smoothly. The sound of the car grew closer, followed by the sound of it braking as the engine cut out. That moment, his up until now lackadaisical footstep grew decisive as the man in the window dashed up to the wall beside the window, carefully peered outside. It was his comrade's car, and so he still didn't relax his guard. Eventually, the sound of footsteps approached the door. Thump, 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 thump was the passcode. I'm back. Open the door already. You must be tired. I'm opening it now. After the locks were undone and the door opened, a man appeared, his arms laden with swollen plastic grocery bags. The bags in his hand had Seven Smart written on them, with bread and milk cartons able to be glimpsed within. The contents of those bags were then spread out over a sheet on the floor. Lost some cup noodles, so go boil some water. What's the kid doing? Hmm? He's been sleeping the entire time. Thank God he's not causing any trouble. He did struggle a bit when he was about to shit himself. Don't let him crap his pants. Suck if he starts smelling like an outhouse in here. Yeah, I know. A gag every now and then. Don't want it to get loose, so keep it tight. Not so tight as he stopped breathing. He said, I know. Did I ask you to pick up another can of gas for the portable stove? We're out. Never asked, you idiot. Seriously, come on, work. Damn it. He rattled the portable stove as he struggled to get it to light. Seeing that, the man who went to buy supplies let out a deep sigh. With a backward glance at that sight, began to walk to the corner of the room. Kidnapped boy was sprawled out on a sheet that was spread out on the floor. Boy, doing okay? Of course, the man didn't assume the kid was able to hear that question, because the boy's ears were plugged, with his eyes and ears thoroughly covered by packing tape. They could have done a blindfold. When his mouth was gagged with a thin, twisted up towel. Because of that, the boy was unable to close his mouth properly, his cheeks sticky with his own saliva. Of course, that wasn't the only reason. Both his arms were tied tightly behind his back with a leather belt. Seemed to be doing okay. At least, not gonna die. Grandpa wanted to play tough. Might have had to lop off in here. Be great if we don't have to. The main family says we do, though. Tough luck. Can you imagine what kind of cruel things they'd have us do? Family says not one scratch on him, though, but seems to be going well for the time being. The minister is discreetly withdrawing the dam project. The Hinuizawa Dam is indefinitely postponed. Wonder when we're letting the boy go. Just want to be done with this already. Main family seems to be gauging the timing. I don't know when it'll be, but probably soon. That great kid? He'll be let out real soon. The men didn't know if their voices were heard by the boy. For him, there was nothing he could do but continue to sleep to escape his harsh reality. More importantly, what are you gonna do about the gas? You can't eat the cup of noodles raw. Try to gas, say something, Keys. Two obviously outstanding children. Why I like rainy days. 'Cause I love a rainy night. And I love a rainy night. The weather forecast had predicted that it wouldn't rain at all this entire week. It's not that I hate sunny days or anything. When every day is the same, unchanging sunny weather, however, anybody would long for a rain cloud or two. If it's simply clear skies for a week, a month, year, anybody would long for a rain cloud or two. The weather specialist said that they had carefully scrutinized a large quantity of past data, so it wouldn't be so likely for the forecast to be wrong. I knew as much, but even then there was occasionally a day where I was hoping that it would be wrong, as I stared up into the clear blue sky. Was I being mischievous in hoping so? I waited and waited, feeling almost suffocated by the boring blue sky undisturbed by a single cloud. I could die from that suffocating feeling. The population of Earth probably wouldn't have increased to this point. In other words, the only person who was being suffocated by this was me. And so, I welcomed the summer evenings when not even the weather forecast could predict a sudden shower. If I were to explain it like this, would you understand a bit more about how I feel? Let's say that tonight's dinner was going to be curry rice. But when you're called down to the dinner table, what was waiting for you was instead an eggplant and bell pepper stir fry. This is just on your mother's whim, by the way. I would be delighted by such whimsy. I don't really like eggplants or bell peppers, but still, I would be delighted. The fact that the pre-established routine of curry rice had been broken would be amusing. Tonight was repeated 100 times, and 100 times you had to eat curry rice. Yet for just this one night, that was changed to an eggplant and bell pepper stir fry. There's no way you couldn't enjoy that chance happening. I hate pre-established routines. I really hate when things are all decided beforehand. I have no love for boredom. I always get my hopes up that someday, something today, will be different from yesterday, no matter how trivial. It's been decided that this entire week starting today was going to be clear skies. The weather forecast decided upon it, so the god of weather must have us also feel obliged to do so. But who's to say that a rain cloud might not just show up one day on a whim? Something that nobody can say for sure, but because that thought remains in this world, a creature such as myself can continue living without being suffocated. Tomorrow will probably be a hot and clear day. However, I'm the only one that knows that predetermined fate, even with but a slim 1% chance, sometimes changes. Hoping for that 1%, I hung up upside-down weather charms on my sunlit eavesdrops. In the end, I spend my days waiting for those unexpected things in life to happen. I pondered why I was hoping for it. Was I hoping for a rain cloud? The answer was simple. I've had my fill of clear skies. Why was I hoping for a rain cloud? The answer was simple. The fact that it was going to be sunny tomorrow was boring. Why was I hoping for a rain cloud? In the end, it doesn't really matter whether it rains or shines tomorrow. Basically, just that the water would water my heart, withered from boredom. That's why rather than a TV drama where the plot's already been decided, I prefer to look up at the sky. Okay, I'm guessing that's the same person who did the talking about clocks and years last time. But who could that be? Is it coming from Rika? I don't think it would serve any purpose for it to be by the Akasaka or protagonist in this chapter. I don't think. Also, it doesn't really seem to like his way of talking. If I had to bet at the moment, I would say Rika. I'm not sure on that. That's what I'm leaning to out of, barley tea and black tea and millstone, not milestone. Your blood pressure has improved. For you to recover this quickly at your age, I'm rather impressed. At this rate, you'll still be kicking after a couple hundred more years, or your son. The young doctor in his medical coat said that as he undid the blood pressure cuff from the arm of the old woman tucked away in her futon. You're a very good physician, Dr. Erie. If a persistent old fart like me doesn't hurry up and die, I'll just be in the way of you young folk. The old lady, or you, laughed faintly with a broad smile on her face. Then, turning towards the sliding door, she called out in a strong voice. Is Shimiko-san or Taiko-san there? Bring me some tea for Irie. The sound of rushed footsteps from the hallway drew closer, till finally the door slid smoothly open. What it revealed was a young girl. It looked like the old lady's granddaughter. Shimiko-san or live for the day. Do you need something? Leon, make some barley tea for Dr. Irie. Okay, got it. You want some too, Granny? Or a black tea be better? Want lots of milk and sugar? I'll measure it out myself so you don't have to put any in. Just bring the sugar jar and some milk when you bring the tea. Okay. Girl named Mion, after giving a rather uninterested response to her taskmaster of a grandmother, returned to the hallway. Pour the doctor's tea in the cups for the guests. Make sure you bring a coaster, too. Also, make sure to dry the outside of the glass, okay? Yeah. Such a fussy pants. Tired voice wafted a reply from down the hallway. The apathetic tone of voice was far from unusual. The old lady let a wry smile slip across her face as she chided the girl. Geez, that girl won't learn. Nothing ever I scold her about sticks. No, Orya-san, you don't have to say that. Myeon-chan is doing her best in her own way, even though she's so young. Mother was the same way. Couldn't teach her anything. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Though her mother's mother must be exactly the same, no? The old lady burst out laughing. Her expression showed she hadn't taken the comment the wrong way. Dr. Irie, I'm sorry, but could you open the doors for me? Seems there's a nice cool breeze outside. The cool chirping of the Higurashi at some points started leaking through the gap in the doorway. Irie stood up and opened the door a bit. A refreshing breeze pushed out the stale air that had built up in the room. It's gotten fairly hot during the day, but the evenings are still rather cool, aren't they? Almost downright chilly last night. Yeah, those types of mornings and evenings aren't one of Hinamizawa's fine points. Irie replied with a smile as she returned to sit on the cushion beside the committee. Oh, switch it. Voices are up. And then the two of them, for a little while, soaked in the voices of the Higurashi. I'm going to try and live to 100. Till the business with the dam is properly finished, I ain't kicking the bucket just yet. To get the government to withdraw a decision they've already made is a fairly difficult thing to do. The way this country does things is like turning a millstone. A heavy one at that. A millstone? Don't you know? A millstone. Irie quickly affirmed that of course he knew what the old lady was talking about. He knew full well that Oreo didn't like having her stories interrupted. This millstone sea can grind anything to a pulp. It's rather impressive. You see, it doesn't turn that easy because it's a rather heavy millstone. Lots of people have to work in unison to get it even to budge. It's that type of millstone. Irie pursed his lips, listening quietly to what she was saying. Eventually, Mion returned with some tea laid out on a tray. Seeing that Oreo was talking in a good mood, she quietly knelt down and laid out the sets for the barley and black tea, careful not to interrupt. That's why, when it gets going, not that easy to stop. It takes the most effort to move it right before it starts turning. But he hates that. Everybody keeps pushing it along without rest. You're talking about friction, right? I get what you're saying. So in other words, if there's some sort of mistake, and the millstone suddenly stops turning, get it turning again takes a great deal of power. More or less. Certainly. A project that's been suspended going again takes quite a lot of work. It's a millstone that can't easily stopped. Once it's stopped, it'll never turn again. That kind of millstone. Be nice if there was some way to get that millstone to stop, wouldn't it? When Irie responded that, Neon and the old lady suddenly sunk into silence. Irie, instinctively thinking he had said something rude, searched in a small panic for the words to correct himself. But that silence wasn't the result of rude words. For what crept across the Mion and the old lady's faces was a contemptuous smile. They know. Well, of course it was the fact that Mion about the kidnapping seemed to be the implied thing behind this. The atmosphere surrounding Irie suddenly froze, leaving him flabbergasted, thinking that the scornful smiles creeping across both of their faces were the result of some mistake of his. Pardon me. He could only grow afraid. Ha 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 ha. Don't know who's laughing. It hadn't been that long at all since he was enveloped by silence. However, unable to stand it, Irie could only let out a weak laugh. His laugh eventually spread to Mion and the old lady. Not knowing exactly what they were laughing at, the laughter left a lingering chill. The only ones not laughing were the Higurashi, who continued their simple and unchanging chorus. On to Chapter 3. The phone suddenly rang. I woke up in a hurry. The clock read 9 p.m. Damn it. Slept past the time I was supposed to report in. I picked up the receiver. Asaka-sama, you have a call from an outside line. Shall I connect you? It's from a coworker named Kanao-sama. I knew it. Didn't call in, so they had phoned me. Sorry, please put them through. Understood. I'll connect you, so please hang up the receiver for the time being. After I put down the receiver for a few seconds, the phone began to ring again. Yes, hello? This is Akasaka. Akasaka-kun? This is Kanao. Good work out there. Couldn't call in for your regular report, so we called instead. What's your situation? Leaving the lecture for later, my senior coworker got straight to the point. Today I went to the village proper. Under the guise of a tourist, I managed to establish contact with the mayor and several other core members of the Defense Alliance. I wasn't able to ask them anything, but I left a good impression and was able to make a bridge for my investigation from tomorrow onwards. I see. Looks like things are going smoothly. Kasaka-kun seemed rather naive. You seem rather naive sometimes, but that might have worked in your favor. I guess you made some good progress for now. I don't have the experience to make a comparison, so I don't know if it's that good or not. I think things went well for today, though. Did you find out anything from the prefectural or local offices? Does it look as though the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance is unrelated to this incident? I still didn't know. I should have been able to say that immediately. I had to say that, but for some reason I hesitated. Still investigating, so I don't know what to say yet. I see. You let us know as soon as possible. I think you understand, but after tonight, it'll have been a full 4 days since the kidnapping happened. Didn't set a time limit. Obviously, that time is not on our side. I think you know. Yeah, I know. I'll investigate a little quicker while still being careful about it. Okay. Be sure to look after yourself. Dealing with a violent organization here. Might be dangerous to let your guard down. Feel that you're in any danger, contact me immediately. In that case, I can get the local public safety office prepared to help you. Thank you. I'll do my best. Anything else to report? Reported several bits of supplementary information, and at the very end I decided to ask. How's the investigation going on your end? Everybody's doing their best here. We're not making much progress. After all, the number of organizations we're investigating is vast. If you find out one you're investigating is in the clear, we'll have you return to Tokyo to assist some of the other officers. Chief is saying to dig up what you can on Onigafuchi, but I don't think a residual anti-dam protest group has any relation to the incident at hand. Sending somebody out just to investigate a single group makes me cringe, really. At this point, he was just complaining. He was telling me to stop taking time, enjoying my trip, to finish up and get back quick. I'll try and resolve this as soon as I can. Thanks. I'm counting on you. Well then, if there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Okay. That's all I have. During ending my call, he scolded me thoroughly for being late with my regular report. After that, I hung up the phone and sprawled out on the bed. To think of it, I hadn't heard anything from Oishi. He was supposed to contact me about a time and place to meet up with the informant tonight. I thought about getting angry with Oishi in retaliation for being scolded for forgetting my daily report. To think of it, though, Oishi didn't really say anything other than he was going to call tonight. Looking for a phone call, but didn't know what time it was going to come, was in itself rather difficult. When I thought that, the phone rang. I picked up the receiver in a hurry. Hello? This is a surprise. Saka-san. Pretty quick to answer the phone. Thank you for the fluid check. This music has kind of a... It's like Law and Order, but groovin'. This is a surprise. Akasaka-san, you're pretty quick to answer the phone. Are you a regular user of dating chat lines or something? I would never even try something seedy like that. The way you overreact is rather interesting. Wanna go to a place where you can have a little bit of lewd fun? I'll pass. So could you please get to the point, Oishi-san? Really? Too bad. We'll leave that for next time then. Well, I'll get to the point. Many of the executives in the ODA had a lot of sway in the neighboring regions. Even in Okinomiya, there are a lot of people with relations in the village. That's why meeting in the Shishibone Market District far from Okinomiya is a matter of course. Akasaka-san, over here. Did you get a little lost? Coming from the north entrance might have been a little bit of a detour, but it was easier to give directions from there. No, I'm sorry for being late. Did you eat dinner already? Yeah, I already did. Well then, shall we go to a place where we can get a drink? Do you prefer Western alcohol? Maybe sake? You prefer a place with or without women? Don't worry about it. I don't drink while I'm on the job. During that, the man that Oishi had brought along bent backwards as he guffawed, clapping Oishi on the shoulder. See? He's just adorable. In exchange, can you give him a bit extra? That money all came from this guy's wallet, you know. The man that Oishi had brought Seemed almost like a ticket scalper or a bookie, and his appearance was dubious. The informant grinned deviously. Hey boy, how much did you give this guy? It looks like their quiet was a bit skimmed off the top, you know. Luishi's handling fee was included, as I took that into account. It seemed that the informant had expected a more extravagant reaction on my part. When I responded matter-of-factly, he realized that I was an entirely different type of a person than he was. But rather than putting a distance between us, it seemed that I had piqued his interest. I said it, didn't I? He's the serious type. Do you see, Akasaka-san? People in a line of work like ours can really use their wealth of experience to their advantage. I'm wondering exactly how the experience of drinking in a bar with women would work to my advantage. Lower blood pressure, maybe? Although potentially that could increase it. How bad someone is at that? The informant, unable to contain himself, clutched at his stomach as he guffawed, heedless of the people watching. Oh lordy, Akasaka-san, you really can judge people. That's what an education does for you. Oishi-san, you've been drinking somewhere, haven't you? Drunk? What's wrong with drinking when I'm off duty? And if you're working, I'm not. Oishi, who was the sort that fool around to begin with, was in such a good mood I couldn't figure out a way to deal with him. Completely different than me, who had come worried about getting every bit of information I could. Oishi-san, for taking so much money, you were supposed to give me information worth at least as much. I thought this, but then realized that I was getting my information from the informant, so it didn't matter how drunk Oishi-san was. It was nothing I could complain about, but I still felt slightly riled up. Oishi and the informant was no doubt a fake name, but he introduced himself as Satao. Led the way deeper and deeper into the back streets of the market district. Even though the market was bustling, a couple of turns off the main street and you were in a desolate alley. Oishi started climbing a set of stairs on the side of a seedy building. There wasn't any sort of signage, so I couldn't tell if the place was open, or if it was even a store at all. Don't worry, this isn't a dubious place. Those words coming from Oishi's mouth had absolutely no credibility. Beyond the door was thankfully a typical mahjong parlor. I was relieved that it wasn't the sort of suspicious place I had to be on my guard about. Welcome, welcome. Oh, Oishi-san, it's been a while. Want to join in? There'll be a free spot soon. No, I'm here with the group today, so it's fine. Oh, sorry to keep you waiting. Mahjong is a game played with 4 people. It seems that a middle-aged man who was going to be Art 4th had already arrived and was waiting for him. You're late, Kurado. Just thinking of going home. Oishi made an excuse for why he had taken so long. Eventually, realizing that I was a new face, the other man grew interested. That's Akasaka-san. He's a rookie who came all the way from Tokyo on assignment. I have high hopes for him. Boy, you play Mahjong? Well, I played a bit when I was still a student. Sato and the old man cackled in unison. Their plot to sucker me out of my money was painfully obvious. I thought you'd be a bit tired from your assignment, leaving you on edge all the time. I thought I'd give you a night to cleanse your spirit. I know asking this now might be stupid, but we're betting money on this, aren't we? All I can say is, that was in the spirit of salute and despair for poor Akasaka-san's bank account balance. Well, you see, just a little. It's just a little for funsies. It doesn't matter who loses, because after this, we're using that money to go play at a very nice place. Go and play? What kind of place would you be doing that? Without reservation, the three of them started suggesting places like cabarets, high-class clubs, and even brothels. Once again, at the very least, there are the type of places that you couldn't go in with money that was just for funsies. Ishi-san took all my money the other day, and also I have work to do, so I can't stay for long. But all you have to do is win. If you win, then you can use that money to pay for this table, and you can talk to Grado about work or whatever. No matter what happened, it seemed like they were intent on playing mahjong for free. I would have to fasten my resolve a bit. If I was going to be underestimated like this forever, it was going to get in the way of my work. I understand, and I'll play with you guys for just a bit. If I win, you guys don't get any of the money or get to go out to any of those dirty places, and we talk about work right away. Yeah, bring it on. If I win, we're headed straight to the Blue Mermaid on Flower Road. Oh, that place where the girls dress up in gym clothes and maid uniforms? Oh my. This old lech here likes that place too. Of course, we're going to hop between all the places where they keep the girls coming. Slurp, slurp, slurp. What about you, Sato-san? I'd prefer a drink where you can drink quietly. Like a nice, quiet place where you can play footsies with a bunny girl. The last time we went drinking, you pulled the tail right off that bunny girl, didn't you? Did you end up having to pay for that? You know what? You know what I have to say to this? You know what I have to say to this? That's what I have to say about that. What a lively table this was. I could tell the other customers were glaring at us while we loudly continued our crude conversation. Speaking of which, the fact that they assumed I was the same was a bit disheartening. Oichi had taken all the money I brought. Everything I had left was out of my own pocket. In addition, there wasn't that much left of that either. If I kept on hanging around with him like this, for his goading, my wallet would disappear into the night. I had to somehow win and return the conversation to my job. These people, no matter how you looked at it, were pretty good. Sorry, Yukie. Oh, been a while since we've heard this. Well then, I'll just call Richie right here. But the old man and Sato-san probably won't fall for this silly Richie. I wonder if Akasaka-kun will spit out when I need. At any rate, Kurado's hand is probably holding something like that, huh? In that case, this one ought to go there. Oh, the old man's pretty good. He's quietly trying to use one of my save tiles to complete his hand, isn't he? It seems that Akasaka-kun has at least learned the ropes when it comes to guarding against someone's Richie. But that will be his downfall. What's wrong, boy? You hurry up and discard? You're not sure. Anything that Kurado's already thrown away should be safe, no? Oh, Akasaka-kun's really fretting over this one. It was glaringly obvious that he had a safe tile to discard, but he didn't want to throw it away, because it would move him further from completing his hand. They're so nice when they're young and innocent. Oh, for those that don't know, the fact that there is a picture or whatever, so you have the little tiles, like on screen or whatever, so like if you were doing dominoes, and you have different characters or dots similar, where it's you basically try to complete, as it's suggesting, these like hands of, there's different patterns and things that like if you were doing poker or whatever, there's different things you can match up with. So, you know, you try to get the best hand that you can to play. That's basically as far as I know. I think at one point I knew a little bit more because I kind of remembered from doing a Yakuza minigame, because they all have mahjong. But anyway, just so that way you'll know what's going on. Or at least kind of some vague notion of what they're doing. Come on, hurry up and throw out the kicker. If he gave me the winning tile, I'd be headed to an establishment where I could do all sorts of licking and sucking. Oh, wait. Am I reading as Oishi? I'm reading as Oishi, aren't I? Yup. Once again. Oh wait, this is even... This...
Are you okay?
He gives the old man his wind tile. He heads straight to the place with maids and bloomers. This will go through, right? He looked up as he instantly threw out a tile that was... oh, too bad. Hey, now that's a dangerous tile, you know. Kurado, does that go through? Yeah, it will. Seems this time you were lucky. As long as the round kept going, I could still win off the draw. But after that, Akasaka-kun managed to luckily avoid throwing any bad tiles, and somehow the round managed to end without anybody completing a hand. Tenpai, Noten. Sato-san had keenly anticipated that 2 players were in Riichi and had decided to play it safe. What a cool-headed way of playing. And let's see, what kind of hand did Akasaka-kun have? The round ends with nobody winning in Mahjong. Anybody in Tenpai has to show their hand. But if you're not in Tenpai, you have no obligation to reveal it. Your average beginner would normally show their hand, even if they weren't in Tenpai. Start a commotion about, off this tile or that tile came, they would be in Tenpai. But he didn't. Being stingy? How'd you do, boy? Come on and show me. Sato-san reached over to flip the hand that Saka had casually placed face down. What the hell is this? It was nowhere near Tenpai. Is Akasaka-kun totally bad at this after all? Right then, as the old man compared to the tiles from Akasaka-kun's hand to the discard pool, a puzzled expression crossed his face. Boy. You were in Tenpai right around here, weren't you? Why'd you break your hand? The higher Manzu tiles suddenly got more valuable, so he suppressed them. Even though with Oishi-san's Riichi, the chance they were safe tiled has increased. It would have been no trouble if he read the discards, but he went out of his way to keep them out of play. Oh? So Kurado's Tenpai was no good from the start, in other words. It wasn't such a high-level trap. I would have thought you were waiting for me to throw out the winning tile. But the more concerning thing is that you were in Tenpai and didn't say anything. When did you realize I was in Tenpai? Around here? Threw out 4 tiles in a row immediately. First, I thought you were just discarding redundant tiles, but I noticed you were glancing over at me and realized you were waiting for something. Saka-kun, you. Saka-san, when did you first start playing Mahjong? I never did, except in high school and university. Now let's continue. Since Sato-san wasn't in Tenpai and the round ended without a winner, then I'm next, right? The next dealer. Seems like Akasaka-kun is really aware of how the game flows. We thought we were just going to eat him alive, but it looks like this isn't going to be so easy. Oishi-san, looks like you're going for the bamboo tiles. Should I put some in play? This boy. Rado, don't back down. As long as I get 3 more good tiles. Sato-san, think you can do it? Damn it. Just force you to go for a cheap Tanyao. Gee. Straight. Well, sorry, I'm going to pawn that tile. Oh no. Going to call 3 of a kind after he declared it straight? Trying to override and interfere? Boy, you're getting pretty used to this. Oh no. I couldn't even compare to you guys who've been playing since before I was even born. That's game. Ron. Triplets. 2 red Dora, and 3 more Dora. Dora the Explorer? Sorry. I'm the dealer, so this'll cost you quite a bit. Akasaka-san, nice job. Now we'll have to get serious, won't we? Well, can you get serious about handing over your points? I'm tired, so let's end this quickly. Akasaka-kun, this is somehow unreal. Before I could realize it, there's an ominous cold air emitting from beneath Akasaka-kun's feet. How blasé. 2, 5, and 8 Manzus are laughing at you. Damn it. Boy, you. Murado, finish it. You have to end the boy's turn as dealer. Hate to admit it, that seems like the best option. There it is. Ron. Simple straights. 1 Dora. Sorry, head bump. Ron. Great. A head bump? Damn brat. Brat. You'd play that sloppily against a brat? Guess that means you're worse than a brat yourself. So interesting. The way you guys call people things like brat and boy. Oh, damn. The gloves are off. Saka-kun. That is you, isn't it? It feels like you're a totally different person. You thought that I, being a sucker, would let you drink some good booze tonight. Seems that you were a little off the mark. Run. Triple straight, red Dora, and another Dora. Whoa. He actually did it. That's why I'm saying you guys are slacking. No matter how you look at it, you have to be able to read such an obvious three-way weight. Akasaka chuckled as he rested his chin in his hands. The pose was so fitting it was almost scary. Corrado, this is what we discussed. Who the hell said he was a naive sucker ripe for the picking? Could it be? Thank you for the fluid check. Ishi-san, this is bad. Keeps going like this, we're seriously going to lose. Asaka-kun, you to make me get serious. Looks like you really want to be milked dry. Pon. That sounds nice. One more time. Pon. Asaka-kun was almost singing at this point. The tiles he had opened were all pin tiles. Can't be serious. Are you really going for the flesh? Pon. Boy, are you right in the head? Open 4 sets. They have 1 tile left, you know. That's right. Did you know? Waiting on a single tile is the hardest thing to read. Are you an idiot? That much of your hand revealed. You don't think we'd give you a tile you need, do you? I know what you're doing, Akasaka-san. It's not a flush or a half-flush, is it? The fact that you called Pone 4 times means you're already in position for an all-triplet hand. Right now, you're far and away in the lead. Trying to show a flush and goad us into giving you triplets, aren't you? If that's what you think, want to try throwing out some pins? The left 5 tiles in your hand, Oishi-san. Your pin tiles reluctant to throw away, aren't they? Try discarding them in order from the left. Must be joking. Is he a Mahjong god? Not. He had to be the main character of a manga or something. Hello, fourth wall. They didn't break the front wall, but they did give it a good punching there. At that moment, the old man sent me a sign under the table. The message was simple and clear. Corrado, do it. Crush him. Don't like to cheat against kids like this. Being a suspect like this, we can't pull back now. Not responsible for what happens, you know. Go ahead. Here we go, boy. Ricci. We'll go open. I'm waiting for a 1, 5, or 7 of pins. Most likely the tile that Akakun was waiting for was one of those tiles. With this, Sakakun was no longer capable of winning the hand. When I drew from the wall, I switched out the tile that Akasaka-kun would draw. The tile that I put in was the 1 pin. One of the tiles that the old man was waiting on. Akasaka-kun discarded it a while ago. There was no threat of it being the one he needed. Come on, it's your turn, boy. I knew he was troubled that the tile he drew was the 1 pin. Of course, he couldn't discard it. Boy, must be aware, but if you discard into an open Ricci, it's worth the limit, you know. You don't have to tell me that. The tile that came from Akasaka's hand was an honor tile. Ain't that something? Only 1 Northwind tile left, isn't there? We're counting on a really rough wait, weren't you? This, Akasaka-kun's fate was decided. Brat, you're lucky you're safe, but your hand only has a single tile. Think you'll be able to run away the rest of this round? So it's going to be like that. Akasaka-kun glared at the old man with a discerning eye. It's guy had pretty good instincts. He'd figure out we were cheating. Stop this. Akasaka-kun is a step or two ahead of us. Cool. Think we can stop after we've come this far? Next, make him draw it. The next tile Akasaka-kun would draw was the 7 pin. With that, it would be settled. No matter which one he discarded, he'd play right in the old man's hand. An unavoidable full payout. When I drew my tile, I sneakily swapped Akasaka-san's. Achoo! Crash. What? Akasaka-kun suddenly sneezed, collapsing the wall of tiles in front of him. Hey, what are you doing? Sorry, I accidentally knocked over the wall when I sneezed. There's a penalty for that, right? The dealer, so 4,000 to everybody? Or is the penalty my point sticks? Ha ha ha! Unable to hold back, I guffawed. Akasaka-kun, knowing he was going to be cornered a second time and unable to escape, he took the drastic measure of knocking over his own wall. You're a good boy. To get away from a full payout like that. Ha 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 ha. Shisan, you not bother putting me in such an obvious trap? If you're at Baba, this would have been the point where I flipped the table. Oh, no, sorry. Underestimated you. For some reason, you're really good, aren't you? Answer me honestly. You had a lot of experience when you were younger, didn't you? I played quite a bit around Waseda and Takadanao Baba. A place I was accustomed to going at pretty high rates, and they chewed me out. I made the woman who would become my wife pretty angry, but I washed my hands of it all. Raise the stakes too high? How much were you playing for at the time? Depends on who I was playing with, but it was more expensive when I played in Kabukicho. The largest stakes I played were about 20 times the standard rate. 20 times? What kind of stakes were those? Do you have yakuza at your table? Or pro baseball players? Miss Geraldo, buffoon. Where did you pull this professional from? I give up. Jeez. Boy, it's your win. I surrender. Thank you very much. It was an honor. My, Asaka-san, personnel really changes when you play. Why do you even have a day job? Probably have no problem living as a freelancer. Be a pro mahjong player, you need both talent and luck. I don't have anything like that supporting me. Luck is luck. Somebody of your skill, I think you'd be able to make it pretty far. Normal luck doesn't cut it. Calling a con and 1 time out of 3, you can aim to win on the extra roll with 4 Dora. That kind of luck. Kasaka-kun, you can judge something like that, you're already border supernatural. No, there's plenty of people who can do that without cheating or superpowers. There was a person I met in Shinjuku who would get Doras every time you blinked. Was as strong as a demon. There was a pro I played with in Yokohama who would draw the tile he needed immediately after calling Richi like it was an everyday thing. I don't have that kind of luck. What type of folks were those? They weren't named Ryu or Satoshi by any chance. Well then, is it alright if I'm declared the overall winner then? Yeah. Totally lost. I lost. It's been a while since I lost this big. Still, when you were playing boy, you were pretty into it. It's kind of scary. I hear that a lot. I don't mean to change gears like that, though. I really look that scary? Yup. 3 of us nodded emphatically in agreement. But that was Akasaka-kun, mahjong prodigy. Before he goes home from his assignment, maybe I could have him go play at a high-stakes table in my place. It's not good to get greedy. Well then, nothing for it. As a promise, we'll break our little late-night study group right now. Sorry about this, old man. That's it for tonight. And you could do. Going home to sleep. My body won't last like this. Problems at work? Oh. He's the foreman of the primary construction site at the Hinamizawa Dam. Oh. Uh, uh, those of you who know. For those of wondering why did I think that was ominous? Um, that's the dude who starts the series of deaths by being the dead dude. He ended up dead and chopped into pieces. Is it just 5 pieces? I think it was just 5. Just 5 pieces. Not like it's 10 or something. Amateur numbers. Get your corpse caught up. He's butting heads with the residents every day. A rough business. Around next year, I might be in charge of the second side as well. I hear that Kuroto-san was pissing blood. Won't hold out much longer. Be alright, old man. Skull is thicker than it looks. Exactly a saint, you know. Times that just make my blood boil. Especially can't start dealing with that brat, the daughter of Sonozaki's. I think one of these days I'm going to rearrange her face. So this is starting to explain why she was so gung-ho about the case. Because he knows the foreman. No. At least the pay is good, right? The wages were pretty exorbitant. Of course they are. The pay was cheap, nobody would hang around that god-awful job. Hey, Kurado, exactly where are the police going to tell all the villagers to shove off? There'll be a notice of eviction from the government, right? Maybe, I wonder when that'll happen. The old man, who identified himself as the foreman of Hinamizawa Dam, reviewed a few complaints until he felt better about it, then left quietly. Well then, let's go. I'll leave the rest to Sato-san. Nishi-san, are you going home? If I'm here, I'll just be in the way, won't I? Besides, the one who bought Sato-san's services was you. I didn't pay for my share. Oishi was kind of sketchy, but he was strangely conscientious about some things. I felt quite a bit of a gap between myself and Oishi's generation from that part of him I didn't comprehend. Boy. I can't call Mr. Mahjong here boy no more. Sakasaka-kun all right with you? Yes. And Akasaka-kun. We go. Well then, Akasaka-san. Later. If you're having any troubles, you can count on me any time. I don't have any more money to pay you, you know that. Can't just give back a little of what I lost tonight. Oishi, seemingly still not having had his fill of playing around, but without overstaying his welcome, disappeared into the night. The informant, named Sato-san, had me get into his car before he set off. He favored narrow roads and made numerous short left turns. Checking if we're being followed? Yeah, you know a lot about this. Checking to see if you're being tailed by making left turns was a rather classic technique. If it was just a single pursuer, you could confirm it that way. But if you're being tailed as a team, this archaic method wouldn't let you chase them. Of course, doing it anyway was better than not. I didn't hear anything from the boss as to who you are, Akasaka. Related to the police? You're familiar with checking for being tailed. The other possibility I can think of is something like a private detective. If it's not something I have to say, I'd like to refuse to answer that question. Ever since we played Mahjong, you seem a lot more mature. I wonder where that hesitant person went from when we first met. I smiled wryly. Looking back now, I had to be a little grateful for being made to play Mahjong. Thanks to that, I was able to relieve some tension. Eventually, Sato-san, confirming that there were no cars following us, slipped outside the city. We were on a pitch-black country road, unable to see anything besides the light outside. Oh, hello, Sophie. Thank you very much for coming by, and thank you for the fluid check. The only thing I was able to hear were the hum of the car's air conditioning and the chirping of insect and frogs. I heard from the boss that you want to hear a bit about Hinamizawa Village, yeah? Like about the old houses known as the three families who controlled the place. Or that right now it's pretty much the Sonozaki family running things. You know that much already, I'll cut out the introductions. And if you would, can you confirm or deny if the Onegufuchi Defense Alliance was involved with the kidnapping of Minister Inugai's grandson? Sato-san checked the rearview mirror one more time to confirm there wasn't anybody behind us before speaking. Last night, Sonozaki main house held a family council.
It's a beautiful day and I can't stop myself from smiling. If we're dreaming,
Hi, Mersheep.
then I'm lying. And I know there's no denying Daddy. It's a beautiful day. The sun comes up. Daddy did it.
Thank you for coming by, Mersheep. I hope you're doing well. Last night, the Sonozaki main house held a family council. Did you hear about it from the boss? No. If it was a normal meeting, then it would just be all the relatives coming together over a nice cup of tea or something. Come here. Sophie, Mersheep's hitting on me. The ominous Higurashi with carpet sing is somehow perfect. You put it like that. Yep, that sounds about right. Honestly.
Emotional damage.
But a family council held by the main house isn't quite as relaxed. Family council held by the Sonozaki main house. That would be a meeting between those who truly controlled Hinamizawa Village. They wouldn't be talking about private family matters. It would be about the village as a whole. About organizing activities against the dam project. Among other things, everything would be decided there. In reality, they were deciding the fate of the village. At the head of the meeting was Oryao Sonozaki, more or less called Empress Sonozaki. As the ultimate decision-maker of the clan, she was to be feared and respected. Infirm with old age, she was often unable to stand on her own, but her words carried enough weight to sway the fate of the village. It seemed that lately she had grown weak, and on days where she wasn't feeling well, remained bedridden. Family councils that occurred while she wasn't feeling well took place with her on the floor. Middle of a dignified Japanese-style room, still in a futon, only the upper half of her body sitting upright, a stern look on her face. That was Oryao Sonozaki. Sitting next to her was her heir, Mion Sonozaki. He was still young. No, young wasn't quite the right word. He was a girl who remained childish. Her role was to merely sit beside Yo Sonozaki, sometimes responding to her requests. However, she was the only one deemed worthy to succeed Yau. She had the same hawkish eyes, enough to give pause to anybody who so much as looked at them. Much was expected of her in the future, as granddaughter of the Sonozakis' leader. And also, on either side of her, sat several other important members of the remaining three families, the Kimiyoshi family and the Furude family. First on the list for the Kimiyoshi family was, of course, the mayor of Hinamizawa village, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi. Lined up beside him were several more of his direct relatives. Opposite them sat the other of the three families, the Furude family. The Furude family was only comprised of the family of a Shinto priest. The only ones sitting there were said priest, his wife, their daughter, Rika. Rika was doted on by many of the older folks in the village, and it seems that Oryou was no exception. While the stress from just attending a family council said to be enough to shorten your lifespan by 3 days, it seemed like Rika was the only one exempt from that. No matter how charged the atmosphere was around her, she paid it no mind, instead humming along as she doodled in a sketchbook. In fact, the night before, lying on her stomach while humming and doodling, she nonchalantly tucked her legs into Oryou's futon like it was a kotatsu. All this was the three families, and all around the room, lined row upon row, were relatives of the Sonozaki family. The only ones who were afforded cushions to sit on were direct relatives. The others were left to sit in the seizo position, directly on the tatami mats. With Empress Sonozaki enshrined at their center, almost like a great snake coiled around the room. It was decided that everybody would sit in order of their rank. The number of people from the Sonozaki family was overwhelming. The fact that the Sonozaki family held so many seats at a meeting where everything pertained to the village, made determining where the balance of power was held in the three families as clear as day. One night after a Higurashi stream, I had a dream that Rika was standing in my room with red light, saying some... Well, you missed the creepy scene. The creepy scene with Rika. So, which might be for the best. She did an expression we've never seen from her before. It was a smirk. And it scared her. And I immediately was like, oh no, I haven't seen this expression before. Also, my possession. Dare I check the VOD? Hold on. I think I can actually. I did that. He gave this expression. I've not. Which, if it was another character, that probably wouldn't be a thing. And she told the protagonist to go back to Tokyo, or something bad would happen. And she did a tee-hee laugh. But then she, like, passed out and went back and forgot it and forgot everything. And he was like, this is someone else. So, Thank you for the wood check. So, the doppelganger possession, that's came up again. This chapter. He even specifically mentioned possession, but he was like, no. But she literally didn't remember. She would like, went up and then was like, huh? What? He just... So, yeah. If you were to have, if one were to have like a character, one character to have that sort of dream, like where they show up, that honestly Rika might be the worst one. Might be the most terrifying. Ah! Small, long-haired Japanese girl, run away! I know how this turns out. Yeah, anyway. The number of members in attendance from each of the families directly reflected how much influence they had in ruling Himizawa. Check under your beds for... Yup. What was talked about at that meeting? Sato-san, after remaining silent for a while, quietly began to speak. Wasn't our monetary gift of appreciation to the media a little large? Breaking the long moment of silence was the head of the Kimiyoshi family, Kiichiro Kimiyoshi. The Onikafuchi Defense Alliance wasn't a business. They were nothing more than a private organization pushing for the cancellation of the Kimizawa Dam project with no reliable source of income. Fundraising had always been a problem. When they first started operating, they had managed to collect a sizable amount of funds through donations. But as the conflict dragged on, that amount was steadily declining. This isn't an era where you can get what you want just by throwing rocks. Very important you don't underestimate the power of the media, and we want to borrow some of that down the road. The expressions of the people relating to the Sonozaki family were sullen, as the one who suggested that they should borrow that power was the family head, Aryo Sonozaki. The battle wasn't just about force of arms. In this civilized age, there were civilized methods of fighting. Wait, using the media? That's anything less than civilized. Using mass media? That's never civilized. Baseball bat to the knees is more civilized. Ario's foresight was spot on, and the effects of that plan, while at first unclearly, slowly began to manifest. The physical confrontation at the construction site was meant to delay progress on the dam by even one day. Then the propaganda war using the media was aimed at attacking the dam project itself. At first, there were those who had doubts about that strategy, but there was nobody now who called those results into question. But in order to maintain those media ties, a colossal amount of money was required. As long as the amount of funds they had was abundant, things would turn out fine. It couldn't be argued that it was a massive expense, but the results spoke for themselves. But, the conflict continuing to drag on, the circumstances had changed. The head of the Sonozaki family, no, the one who sat at the pinnacle of the Hinamizawa three families, Aryo, had suggested the idea herself, so it was already untouchable and continued to be allowed to drain from the budget. Nobody acknowledged that it should be so allowed. Nobody could say anything. That was the price of dealing with the mass media. What do you think, Aryo-san? The only person who could object to a plan proposed by the head of the Sonozaki household herself was probably Mayor Kimiyoshi. Aryo, with a hard-to-define expression on her face, as if she had severed herself from the fetters of mortal emotion, simply listened quietly to Kimiyoshi's words. But really, it was hard to tell if she was quietly listening or didn't even have the intention of listening at all. Last year, went through a lot of trouble getting people to wrap their heads around the price hike on the bulletins we were putting out. Convinced them it was just the one time. It wouldn't do if we had another 1 year this year. Right, Furude-san? The mayor looked to the priest and his wife from the Furude family for affirmation. The priest gave a vague expression, avoiding a prompt response. But his wife gave her answer without a second thought. That's right. The cost of the bulletins are a particular harsh burden for the poorer families. Everybody is dealing with it for the sake of the village, but it's best we don't increase the prices anymore. The bulletin was, as its name implied, a bulletin published by the Onagafushi Defense Alliance. It outlined the Alliance's activities, ideals, and resolve, but you couldn't deny the contents were rather piecemeal. That bulletin's main goal was to inform people, but rather wasn't to inform people, but rather was something to sell to businesses and people living in the village or connected to it, and using those sales to collect funds. In other words, it had become something of a tax. Of course, it didn't have to be said, this was one of the main sources of income for the ODA. Originally, purchase was supposed to be voluntary, but in Hinamizawa it had silently become the opposite. In the neighboring towns as well, it seemed that many businesses were buying copies just to avoid butting heads with the Alliance. The priest whispered to his wife to not say anything unnecessary, but was struck down decidedly with a cold glare. Pouring from that glare, the priest shut his mouth. The priest's wife always held the power in their relationship. That was because she was the one who carried the Furude bloodline. The priest merely married into the family. He was nothing more than somebody who adopted the name just to join the three families. He should have been able to find a spot high up in the hierarchy of things. The lack of authority in his voice meant that he had still not gained any favor. Casting a backward glance at her rather disparate comments, Rika continued to doodle whimsically without paying them any mind. Signaled by a look from Aryo, Eon brought her ear closer to her grandmother. There, something was said to her in a quiet voice. After responding with a couple questions, the nod from Aryo, Mion looked around the room and conveyed her grandmother's words. There will be no freeze on the price increase for the bulletin. Kimiyoshi made a face like he had just bit into something unpleasant, but that expression quickly disappeared like it had never happened at all. But Mion-chan, I think you already know this, but the cost of the bulletin is by no means easily affordable. It's a burden carried by everybody in Hinamizawa. If we make people carry too much of that burden, It's possible we collapse from the inside. And who on the inside would start that collapse? Huh? I didn't mean it like that. I'm asking who would be the first to buckle. Being cross-examined by a girl who still had her fragments of childishness remaining within her, the words stuck in Kimiyoshi's throat as he sunk into silence. Mion repeated her question once more, looking around the crowded room. Everybody refrained making eye contact to avoid being pierced by her gaze. The words she had spoken were unarguably said in proxy for Oryoo. That's why when Mion spoke them, they carried the same weight. But the look in her eyes was different. Like Oryoo's, they had a hawkish gaze, strong enough that anybody looking upon them would freeze in their tracks and yield. But that gaze was without question one that belonged to Mion herself. As Mion would eventually inherit everything from Oryoo, the day when she would stand up as a young and capable leader in her own right would come. Nobody wanted to believe otherwise for even a minute. That's why nobody even thought of Mion as just some sort of little kid. Miyoshi-san, nobody will lose their resolve over something like a price hack on the bulletin. Kimiyoshi, while grumbling a little bit, made a gesture as if to say he had no objection. The expenses related to the mass media will continue. If those expenses become too much, we'll have no choice but to continue the price hacks. Mion had rendered her judgment. Everybody bowed their heads, silently listening to her words. In the name of Mion Sonozaki, as acting head of the Sonozaki family, I hereby declare that this shall be effective immediately. There shall be no objections, and any opposition shall be removed by force. The formal decree was read aloud, indicating her judgment. There would be no retrial. There was a certain authority behind those words that even a courthouse couldn't compare to. If she was a judge, she would have banged her gavel, signaling that the matter was settled. Mion pulled out a large bell from inside her clothes and rang it. Everybody present could only prostrate themselves toward the harsh sound of the bell. Well, it's a rather old-fashioned family council, isn't it? A young guy like you would probably find it hard to believe. Antiquated place like this, these types of things have firm roots. It was exactly as Oishi had said. The old system of the three families had vanished. And now the Sonozaki family was running things by themselves. On top of that, their rule was borderline despotic. Was that the end of the meeting? No, there's more. I'll continue. Eventually, after the ringing of the bell ceased, there was a deafening silence. Could you call it the sound of silence? Ba-dum-tsh. I'm sorry. Within all of that, a lone man shuffled closer to Mion and whispered something in her ear. Mion asked several questions quietly in response. She was satisfied. She motioned for the man to leave. The man who talked to Mion was a member of a gang that her father was the leader of. That organization had the entire area of Shishibone City under its control, but is quite well known even here. Of course, this was talking about the criminal underworld, but it's not like just anybody would know. Just showing a patch with the gang symbol on it was enough to resolve any disputes in the neighborhood. Mion's biological father, Uaryo, was her daughter's husband. The power of that man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly, the OTA. So that man, from his position as the next in line to control the three families, continued to coerce everybody around him with his unconventional presence. Mion exchanged a look with her father. Is it okay for her to tell what she just heard directly to Oryo? It looked like she was asking him that question. Her father gently but firmly nodded his response. Mion also nodded, then sidled up to Oryo and informed her of something. Eventually, Mion finished conveying her message, separated herself from Oryo, and fixed her posture, waiting for Oryo to signal her response. It wasn't often that Oryo showed any emotion. That's why, when she started to laugh quietly, a vague sense of uneasiness crept over everybody in the room. That's quite the conundrum, isn't it? Oryo was laughing so happily that Kimiyoshi had to hesitantly ask, "What is it, Oryo-sama?" "This land is like a mother to us, and this business with the dam is just like somebody threatening our mother's life, isn't it?" Kimiyoshi, unable to comprehend the meaning of her words, looked confused. Oryo, with a wide grin on her face, turned towards everybody and addressed them in a clarion voice. "The minister behind the dam project is apparently rattled over the kidnapping of his grandson. That makes us even." "That's absurd. Information on the kidnapping of Mr. Inugai's grandson shouldn't have leaked from anywhere. Did they know? Even we didn't know much about the kidnapping incident. Exactly how did an antiquated household so far away from Tokyo come to know of it? It was a tranquil place, but I couldn't help but have an uneasy feeling about Hinamizawa village. At some point, I had mentally filed this place away as unrelated to the incident at hand. That mental paperwork had just blown away in the wind. How the ODA know about that?" Sato-san, unable to come up with an answer, fell into silence. "I'm sorry. Please continue." "Sure. The Minister of Construction's grandson was kidnapped? Oryo-sama, son, is that true?" That major of an incident was nowhere to be seen in the newspapers or on TV. But in Hinamizawa, there was nothing strange about Oryo knowing something that the rest of the world didn't. Our pain is the pain of losing a mother. I don't think it completely makes up for it. The pain of losing a grandchild. You'll have to bear with that for a bit. You think? The last question wasn't addressed to anybody in particular. It was as if she was looking for consensus. Still, land and a human child are different things. I don't mind hiding him here, but I want no harm to befall him. The child isn't to blame. Be sure to keep that in mind. That means that the ODA were involved in the kidnapping? Can't say for certain. Why? Even though their leader, Oryo, was clearly giving orders on the treatment of the kidnapped child. You see, this is what the Sonozaki family always does. Always does? What do you mean by that? Let's say there was a particular problem. One that wasn't exactly favorable for the Sonozaki family. Oryo shows concern over that particular problem. Hearing that, somebody who attended the family council would be helpful. As a result, Oryo's wish would be granted. However, neither Oryo or anybody else would know who actually did it. This kind of clever little ploy, the Sonozaki family was able to manipulate events, even though they had their hands laid out on the table. Then, that means that somebody who was at the family council was the culprit? Or there's the possibility that there was never a culprit in the first place. Oryo herself, in that room full of people, didn't explicitly say that somebody pulled off the kidnapping. She was just giving her opinion. It was an odd and unpleasant, secretive way of doing things. They involved or weren't they? Couldn't see beyond the veil. This much, however, I could say with certainty. This kidnapping was an ironclad secret. No matter how high a position somebody was in, even they wouldn't know about it. If there was somebody who would know about it, they would be connected to public safety. In other words, one of us. The only other options were people connected to the case itself. Including the minister, there would be people affected by the incident, or the people that committed it. In any case, there is no way an old household in a place removed from Tokyo by over 6 hours of highway travel should know about it. Them knowing at all was already strange. My suspicions began to accumulate, like falling snow. That's much as Oryo said in regard to the kidnapping. Hopefully, what you wanted to find out was in there. For this, it's up to you. I don't know what kind of work you're doing, but if you're going up against the Sonozaki family, you'd best prepare yourself. Wishi might be fearless, but even he's been attacked 2 or 3 times. He hasn't been wearing it lately, but at one point, he was wearing a stab-proof vest while off duty. Oh, thanks for the warning. I'll be careful. Speak pretty well. You from Tokyo by any chance? Thank you for the fluid check. Huh? What's your point? Investigators were always close to danger. It was best not to divulge any information on myself. Job. Could it possibly be somebody from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division? I couldn't remain silent here. Be the same thing as admitting it. Huh? No way. Ha ha ha. I feel like... Wow, his response was not any better than staying silent. What? That's not me. Ha 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 ha. This wasn't accounted for in the money I got from the boss, but as somebody who played at the same table today, I'll give you this one as a freebie. After Oyo talked about the kidnapping, there was one other topic that came up. Yes, very smooth. Also, I don't like where this is going. Another topic that Oryo brought up. Right before he told this, Sato-san asked if I was from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division. In other words, those 2 things caused a chill to run up my spine. So you see, in order to investigate the kidnapping of the minister's grandson, there's word that there will be an investigator from public safety dispatched all the way from Tokyo. An investigator from public safety? They can't be reckless and make a big deal over the kidnapping. But it seems the Metropolitan Public Safety Division is investigating this on their own. Ain't that grand? What is it? Rika, who had been drawing the entire time and was completely uninterested in the conversation up until now, looked at Orko with an interested face as soon as the topic of public safety came up. Uh-oh. Did the Metropolitan Police come? Oh. So Rika-chama knows about the Metropolitan Police Department? Very admirable. Who came? Is there anybody that knows what kind of guy from public safety came here? Ian's father raised his hand slightly. I hear that it's a nice young piece of fresh meat. Fresh meat? Nice and tender? Yeah, it is. Fresh meat. Leon's father smiled wryly as he answered Rika's question. Tender and tasty? Yeah, tender and tasty. Rika smiled with interest. Why did Rika suddenly act
No, 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 no!
Yep, yep. It's about the response. That's kind of like we did. Oh no. Why did Rika suddenly act interested only when it came to this topic? That was a question that apparently nobody had the answer to. Does Rika-chama know something about this man? Don't know. About her rather flat reply, Rika buried herself underneath You's futon again. When she buried herself there, Rika no longer started drawing again. Instead, she was making an expression like she was deep in contemplation. What shall we do about him? What shall we do about him, Mother? Mion's father posed the question. He had the type of uncouth expression on his face, indicating that, given the order, he could snuff the problem out at any time. Came all the way to Hinamizawa. Let him take it easy for a little while. So you're just saying to let him go around as he pleases? Ian's father asked in response. Aryola smiled thinly as she responded. Leave him alone. But starts causing too much mischief. That happens. Don't hold back. I don't enjoy being taken like. Okay, that's when you report your. That's when you report. Akasaka? Make your report from what you've learned. It to your boss. To your dear Princess Celestia letter. And then go back to Tokyo. Just do it. Do it. Do it. It's what they talked about, apparently. It couldn't be that you're that fresh meat from Metropolitan Police, are you? Couldn't be. Ha 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 ha. Once again, that's not how you. That is not how you do that. And I'm just a streamer. I'm just a VTuber. Just a random VTuber, okay? And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Of all the ways you can do that, then, you know. I'm glad someone appreciated it. Dear Princess Celestia, today I learned that the Sonozaki has probably kidnapped a child. And they may plan to kill me if I stay here much longer. So I'm getting on a train and getting out of here. Yes. Detective Oishi-san is a dick. That sensation of cold, bristling fear began to crawl its way up my back. This family council took place last night. In other words, yesterday. Yesterday. Love was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away. Then today, when I was dressed up as a tourist, headed towards Hinamizawa, my cover was already blown. Wait. That means this wasn't before the Rika had who would already know to look out for someone from Tokyo. Yeah, you should definitely head back to Tokyo. My dude. Go back to Tokyo. Train. Write a nice review on Yelp for the hotel to stay in bus service so you don't leave any waves. And today, when I dressed up as a tourist headed towards Inuizawa, cover was already blown. When I remembered the first person I met when I got to the bus stop, I couldn't breathe. The person at the family council who expressed interest, the man being dispatched from the Metropolitan Police, Rika Furude, and then the person who was waiting for me the whole time in the bus shelter, Rika Furude, was an unthinkable image. No, it was a delusion. We met at the bus shelter. Rika-chan already know my true identity? Did she know that I was a Akasaka, dispatched from the Metropolitan Police Department, come to meet me? And including Mayor Kimiyoshi, every villager that I met. Everybody knew, but just pretended to. Because Oryo had given instructions not to interfere. Thinking about it logically, didn't seem possible. I met quite a number of people. There's people that are good at acting, and there's people who are bad at hiding things. There were that many people. There should have been somebody among them who knew that I was from public safety, couldn't hide their hostility. However, I didn't feel any presence like that. But then, even still, did Oryo tell them to leave me alone? Was it because if they were careless about it, it would only raise more suspicion? Or was it because they believed a rookie like me wouldn't be able to find anything? Akasaka is a coward. I recall that strange voice, which could only make me believe that Rika-chan had been possessed. That unknown entity, no matter how you looked at it, knew my true identity from the get-go. Then, did it warn me again? That's right. It warned me to hurry up and go back to Tokyo. Instead of the realistic worry that the ODA had discovered my identity, the absurd worry brought on by the unknown girl stuck with me more. Exactly was that girl? What was the thing I would eventually regret? Mysterious girl, Rika Furude. Stop this. Everything I was thinking of right now was merely conjecture. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I'll report everything I heard right now to HQ and wait for their orders. There was no mistaking that the possibility the ODA related to this case was there. That the fact that my cover was blown meant I was in a precarious situation. But as everybody at HQ was already extremely busy, they might not be able to spare the support. Is that everything? If you want, I can drop you off wherever you like. Oh, sorry. In the case, the station where we originally met, please. Roll a road where even a street light was rare. I couldn't see anything. I wasn't aware of anything but the asphalt that was lit up by the headlights. Outside of that light, is it simply darkness? Or is there something lurking there, waiting to strike? I had to think I drew the short straw here. I wanted to go back to Tokyo. For some reason, the voice of the girl warning me to go back to Tokyo still lingered in my head. There's a tips called What's in the Box. What's in the box? What's in the box? Tell me what's in the box. Oh. Anything horror related or crime related with the title like What's in the Box is never good. Seven flashbacks. The investigation runs aground. Well, if it's run aground, then you should probably call a dinghy to get it off. Or, no wait, tugboat. Darn it! Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Yesterday when we met at the restaurant in Ginza, that topic popped up. That's overstepping their boundaries, isn't it? They're meddling too much with public safety. If they keep doing that, they're going to set a bad precedent. It seems that Minister Inuka is openly uncomfortable at the way public safety is doing things. The Vice Minister is probably going to say something to that effect during Monday's debate session. But what can you do? We only have the Director address the Vice Minister. That's why we pay him the big bucks. Well, if it comes to that, they're going to ask him for proof that the Minister is being threatened. Sometimes I don't know what side he's on. If he's not ours, then what? Well, he's probably getting some pressure from the Minister. Probably just have to proceed with the investigation while he sweats it out in the Vice Minister's office. Buys us some time. He might get so wrung out to dry that all they'll be left are dregs, though. So how's the investigation going? All the juicy leads I was pinning my hopes on turned out to be duds. Honestly, I'm at a loss. The reports that the Hinamizawa Dam project has been showing up a lot lately in the minister's press releases. So, what about that? You say showing up, but it's really more of a very slight feeling that something's strange. He just happened to mention it during a speech at the prefectural forum, which just might have seen something that was mentioned because it was relevant at the time. If I remember correctly, a local organization there was protesting quite violently, no? The Onigafuchi Defense Alliance? I think Akasaka-kun was investigating that. I think those guys could possibly be behind what's happening now. And if we can't say there's anything overtly suspicious about them, it might not be prudent to remove them from the picture. Akasaka-kun reported in passing that he couldn't deny that possibility. Then, isn't there merit in investigating them? Going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. So if they're one of the suspicious groups there that are left, we'll eventually have to. Well, they're not the only group we should investigate, right? Just talking about groups that are suspicious of Onigafuchi, there's quite a few of them. Don't have the men, the time, or the money for it all. Try asking for more details from Akasaka-kun. I feel like we should pay some extra attention to this defense alliance. He's reported that he's established a rapport with the villagers. It also seems that he's collaborating with the local police. Keep your contact with Akasaka-kun on the down low. Also, if there's any evidence or anything in this info that merits investigation, it's possible we can send reinforcements. Got it. Sorry, Chief Katauka. There's a phone call from the director. Could I transfer it over here? Oh, no, it's okay. I'll head over there. Yes, hello? Do you believe that there are choices in life? There are many people who lament the following. There only existed points in life where there were clear choices to make, would be able to scrutinize those carefully and make decisions that would lead us to a better future. Every time I hear people lament as such, I cast it off as a rather trivial worry. Even if you were given a clear choice, it wouldn't be meaningful at all. There wouldn't be any such path to a better future. Is this hard to understand? Then let's pretend that in front of you there are two strange boxes. In other words, you have two clear choices. Do you open the red box or the blue box? A lot of things would be uncertain with that choice, wouldn't they? You don't have the option of opening neither, then your choice boils down to the natural impulse of opening the box that holds the better result for you. And after examining the shape and features of each, pondering a great many things, you have to pick either the red or blue. That if this was you, which box would you open? Red or blue? If you were to go by their traditional meanings, then red would be a dangerous, threatening color. However, that doesn't automatically mean that it would be calm and relaxing inside the blue box either. In fact, it might even be that the colors are a trap, making you wary of the red box and have you open the blue. A trap? Could be the contents of the box aren't a reward, but rather a penalty. See, now you're at a loss. You're so conflicted over the choice between red and blue that you've started wishing there was an option to open neither and just leave. There isn't. You have to open either the red box or the blue box. Oh, I forgot to say this, but if you choose one box, the other will disappear. You will never know the contents of the box you don't open. I'll just put that rule at the end there for you. Now, why don't you choose the red box or the blue box? It's alright, you won't lose anything by picking either one. Come on now. Wait, oh, it's actually making me... Well, red's my favorite color, so... The red box. Have you thought about it? In the end, you chose this color, didn't you? As soon as you choose, the other box disappeared. You can give up on the contents of that one, okay? That's the rule. Now open up the box you chose. Inside the box, there was a piece of caramel. I know you're a little disappointed. That's only natural. No matter how you look at it, it looks like you drew the dud. The correct box might have had a bar of chocolate in it for all you know. No, in fact, something incredible like a pair of tickets to Hawaii might have been there. But even if you wanted to verify that, the other box has already disappeared. There's no way you can check it now. Well, in this game there is. But if you think about it from an optimistic point of view, yes, maybe, the other box was empty, and this box was the winner. And being satisfied, or perhaps not, with such a cheap prize, you pop it into your mouth and start chewing it happily. So what do you think in the end? If you're given a second chance, would you try to open the other box? But unfortunately, the chance between the red box and the blue box has come and gone, never to be seen again. The chance to change your selection will never come. Don't your parents often say, every choice you make in life only happens once, so choose carefully? See? Choices aren't that great after all. Aren't you a little disillusioned now? Ha 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 ha. Is it going to replay? Let's do this again. If it stops me, then in bravo. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, this. What's in it? What's in it? In the box there was a stick of chewing gum. Okay, now we know. Wait. Hold on. Right now, you're inside the box, there's a stick of chewing. Right now, you're thinking, that's it. That's right. The contents of the red box and the blue box were a piece of caramel and a stick of chewing gum. Very clever game. You knew I was... You might have thought you made the wrong choice before, but now seeing them together like this, can't really say that either choice was the wrong one. Well, I guess everybody has their personal preferences. Preferred caramel to gum, for example. Definitely thinking of choosing to open the box again based on that preference. Clear choices you wanted were basically this. The selfish desire to open up both boxes and compare the contents, then pick the one most suited to you. But you see, reality is the same as this game. If you pick one you didn't choose disappears. So there's no way you could check the result. At that time, if you had done this, or perhaps if you had done that, then it wouldn't be hard to imagine that you could be happier, or perhaps less happy than you are right now. In the end, you only have the pleasure of approving of or being disappointed by the choice you did make. But that's fine. After all, did you enjoy the thrill of making the choice? If like now you knew the contents of both boxes, then the choice between the red box or the blue box would just be a waste of time. Because instead of this boring game about boxes, you could be looking at the quickly changing evening summer sky, looking for the distant sound of thunder, and pondering if it's going to rain or not. That would be much more fun. Why you gotta be like that, game? Throwing me and my audience under the bus like that. Just coming out, saying we should be doing things like look at the sky and stuff like that. Go out and touch grass. I see how it is. The glint in the demon's eye. Uh-huh. Yes. So the wake will be from 6 p.m. tomorrow, and the service will be the day after the noon until 1. The venue will be Okinomiya Ceremony Hall. I see. Deputy Mayor Izawa's grandson funeral we're talking about. We have to pay our respects. We have to pay our respects. Mion, I'll have you go in my stead. Okay, got it. Should I wear mourning clothes? How much should I bring for the funeral offering? You can go in your school uniform. Make sure you button it up properly. For the money? 100,000 yen. They've done a lot for us. Mian quietly whistled in awe at the exorbitant amount of money her grandmother was offering. Yazawa-san's been a prudent person ever since his days as the head of the Okinomiya Municipal Office. Even if those government types paid me a visit, they'd always stay outside. But whenever I offered Izawa a cup of tea, he'd come inside and carefully listen to what I had to say. He always lent a proper ear to what people had to say. Others should learn from a person like him. 2 guests made a show of nodding, making it clear that they were paying attention as Ryo reminisced. The sight of them trying not to get on Ryo's bad side was humorous enough to elicit laughter from Mion occasionally. How young was Deputy Mayor Ikazawa's grandson when he died? 11 years old, apparently. Ryo closed her eyes and shook her head lightly, lamenting the loss of such a young life. I recall correctly, he said he only had one grandchild. How sad. There's nothing worse for a parent than to outlive their offspring. You're really nice to other people, Granny. If Shion or I died, you'd be this sad? Don't be stupid. Saying something like that is bad luck. Having gotten the reaction she expected, Mion cackled. 2 guests, unsure if they were supposed to laugh along instead, forced awkward smiles. We'll take our leave for today, then. We'll be by tomorrow evening at 5 to pick you up. Until then, please excuse us. After bowing their heads repeatedly, the guests left by the front door. Mion saw them off, waving her little hand goodbye. They're gone. Must be rough for them to pay you a courtesy visit, Granny. It would have been fine if they just broke the news over the phone. Well, it was true that Oryo Sonozaki was a central person for both her relatives and the residents of Hinamizawa village as a whole. As a voting bloc, they numbered in the several thousands. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayor would try to pander to it. Unlike Mion, however, Oryo was looking up longingly at the sky from the veranda. What's the matter? Are you going senile? Just thought that no matter whose grandchild it was, I'd feel sorry for them. Saying that, she let out a deep sigh. Mion was let down, as normally her grandmother would have scolded her for her attitude. Mion, you know, that minister's grandson. How long has it been since he was abducted? 4 days, maybe? Ryo let out another deep sigh. Maybe the grandchild of our bitter enemy. But I still feel sorry for him. Really? That's enough of a warning. Should bring this to an end soon. The playful expression drained from Mion's face, leaving behind a stern one. And then, as if to ascertain Ryou's will, looked into her eyes. Ryou expressing her intention, only those eyes looked back into Mion's. I want some tea. You call for some. Some of that chocolate, too. Mion gave a small nod, then turned around. Shimiko-san, are you there? Oh, there. Shimiko-san, are you there? Grandma wants some tea. Could you prepare some? From far away, a voice responded in the affirmative. Mion, after confirming she'd been heard, picked up the phone and began dialing. Hello? This is Mion. Yeah. My father there? We're definitely not going to be finishing it, but we'll go a little bit into chapter. We'll go a little bit into the next chapter. I had a restless night's sleep. I did nothing but turn over repeatedly during a night that seemed like it lasted for eternity. Even then, I eventually fell asleep at some point, not realizing how high in the sky the sun had risen. I shook off the urge to go back to sleep. It was then that I noticed that the phone was ringing. The time was almost 10:30 in the morning. It was clearly too late for a wake-up call. Isaka-san, good morning, it's Oishi. Waking up to the sound of Oishi's voice was little too much of a shock. My delicate ears were ringing. But thanks to that shock, I was suddenly wide awake. Hello. Good morning. Maybe you just woke up? Even though you're on assignment, it's still not good to be asleep during regular business hours. You're absolutely right. I'll be more careful in the future. I have another tidbit that might wake you up even more. There was something interesting mixed in with the lost and found at the Hinamizawa police box. Lost and found? Let's leave the details for when you get here. Think you'll be able to make it before noon? No, I'll be there right away. Oishi already knew what my mission was, since Oishi said it was something that would wake me up. It was hard to believe that it would be irrelevant to me. Honestly speaking, judging by the information from Sato-san yesterday, this is gonna be something terrible. It's gonna be something terrible, isn't it? Knowing that my cover was already blown, I couldn't wander to and from Hinamizawa carelessly. It's gonna be a letter, like a warning or something. In other words, my investigation was at an impasse. There was some information there that could put me back on the trail. Would be nothing less than a stroke of good fortune. After vigorously washing my face, I pulled on my jacket and hailed a taxi, heading toward the Okonomiya police station. Oh, you're here. Genius Mahjong player has arrived. My apologies for being late. So, exactly what popped up? Absolutely no intention of reminiscing about last night's Mahjong. I pressed him to get to the point. Oishi, anticipating that I would act that way, cut to the chase without any resistance. Like I said, you have a good night, Sophie. Thank you very much for coming by. Hopefully you don't have any dreams involving Rika or any other Higurashi characters. Like I said earlier, I arrived from the Hinamizawa police box lost and found this morning. Lost items that were turned over to the police box were sent to Okinomiya Station after the paperwork was filled out. Thank you for the fluid check. Oishi pulled out a plastic bag from a drawer and laid its labeled contents on the desk. Is that a wallet? Indeed. There's small change inside, but no bills. Thought that a pickpocket threw it away after pulling out the contents. First, I didn't understand how this wallet, so far removed from Tokyo, could possibly be related to the kidnapping. It had drawn Oishi's attention. It would have to be something dramatic, like if the wallet belonged to the missing grandchild. That would be absurd. Like something that convenient would happen. That was it. There were probably initials written on the wallet, like the initials of Toshiki Inugai, the minister's grandson, T.I. Thinking like that at this point, I didn't suppose that this wallet was something that could get Oishi so excited. Oishi, after putting on a pair of disposable plastic gloves, handed me a pair of the same. I didn't feel that this wallet was such an important thing, so I had my doubts on whether there was any point in putting on gloves. However, I didn't want Oishi's intention to go to waste, so I put them on. Oishi opened up the plastic bag and pulled it out, showing me the back. As I had imagined, there were initials engraved there, but it was slightly more detailed than what I thought. Toshiki I marked on it. Oh. He grinned at me with a look on his face that said, "See? Can't confirm that this belongs to the minister's grandson," I informed him calmly. This wallet was irrelevant. It was nothing more than Oishi's overeagerness. First of all, there was absolutely no way in this distant locale that the missing grandson's wallet could be found with such convenient timing. After all, the ODA wasn't related to the case in the first place, so there was no way this wallet belonged to the grandson. Why I wanted to decide that was the case, and I really didn't know. I didn't really know, even though what should have been a top secret case was leaked before I had even been dispatched. In this situation, how could I say this was definitely unrelated? It'd be more prudent to pay more attention to this wallet. It had only been a couple of days since I arrived in Hinamizawa. In those couple of days, due to the number of remarkable events, my nerves might have become just a little frayed. Shaking my head slightly, I cleared it of unnecessary thoughts. Oishi opened the wallet zipper, revealing the contents. Inside was small change and a number of crumpled receipts. Oishi from that jumble pulled out a folded card. Seeing that, my heart stopped for him. It was a card from a dental examination. The name, Toshiki Inugai, and the age. A perfect match. The dentist's location was in Tokyo. There was no need to explain any further. Well, they found the far was it from Tokyo to Hinamizawa? Oh, wait, why did they? If they were able to pull off the kidnapping, I don't think they would be that bad as to, just drop something like that. Which means it's intentional. So why? To make it more obvious that it's them? Well, that it's related to them. Because technically the kidnapping isn't there isn't... Officially, there's no kidnapping because it wasn't reported, so... How far was it from Tokyo to Hinamizawa? It was far enough that taking the bullet trains and cars would still take several hours. Why would a wallet with a dental examination card from Tokyo inside show up in Hinamizawa? It belonged to a tourist who came from Tokyo? Or maybe a villager on vacation to Tokyo just happened to pay a visit to the dentist? No, it had to have fallen into somebody's bag by accident. In my mind, I desperately struggled to find a possible excuse as to why this wallet, didn't belong to Toshiki Inokai. It was as if it just wouldn't do for his wallet to belong to him. However, weeding out any possibility for error one by one, the haze surrounding the wallet in front of me faded, gradually let it come clearer into focus. See? I felt a shiver of electricity run up my spine. My pulse quickened and a thin film of sweat began to coat my entire body. From Oishi's point of view, I was probably slack-jawed and spaced out, with a slovenly look on my face. Get information from the dental office? That's your job, Akasaka-san. I didn't go that far. When did this wallet show up? The person who picked it up was a villager. They did so yesterday, it seems. Not that, I mean, when was this wallet drop? Rained here last week. Exactly 7 days ago. Doesn't look like the contents are water damaged. So the longest it could be would probably be 6 days. Does anybody else at the station have knowledge of the existence of this wallet? The officer who first encountered at the Hinamizawa police box, and also the 2 or 3 people in charge of the lost and found. And that it's just me and you. It's involved in a classified case. Bad to talk about it, wouldn't it? I don't intend to wag my tongue. For the fluid check? May I borrow a phone? Go ahead. Dial 0 to get an outside line. I dialed the phone number inscribed on the examination card. I could hear my pulse pounding inside my head. Must be something so absurd. The addresses on the receipts and cards inside the wallet were all from around the area where the grandson lived. The name on the examination card was also a match. The time was deduced that the wallet had been left behind also matched up with the timeline of the kidnapping. Whereas it was possible I could just laugh it off as all a big pile of coincidences. There wasn't any strong evidence. But then all this circumstantial proof, contents of the phone call I was about to make would have a much greater meaning. Hello, sorry to keep you waiting. This is the dental office. Well, this is the police. I have a misplaced wallet here and I'm trying to get in contact with the owner. Would you be able to help me? Inside the wallet there is an examination card from your office. Yes. The name is Toshiki Inogai. If I give you the number on the card, would be able to look up the phone number. Yes, thank you. If you could. Still holding the receiver, I pulled out a notebook from my breast pocket with my free hand. I opened it up to the page with the grandson's address and phone number recorded on it. Yes, hello. Yes, go ahead. I compared the phone number written in my notebook, the one that was being read out on the other end of the line. During that process, I spun around to look behind me uneasily. I locked eyes with Oishi. Oishi looked puzzled, wondering what the matter was. Why would I feel uneasy and look behind me? That was because the person on the end of the line was reading out the numbers as though doing so straight from my notebook. Seeing that the HQ was in quite an uproar thanks to my report. No matter how many times the authenticity of the evidence I had linked to the grandson was called into question, I could only respond that it was the truth. When the lead investigator first picked up the phone, I was grilled about the evidence I'd found that was almost too good to be true, say so myself. But after having doubts after doubt dispelled, he fell into silence. The receiver was finally handed over to the section chief. When he picked it up, the background thrum on the other end of the line disappeared, and I knew that it had gone completely silent. After asking the same question about the wallet that the lead investigator did, the chief quietly spoke his next words. Got it. We'll dispatch several people as reinforcements. They should be able to make it there by evening. Akasaka-kun, please continue with your investigation of the area. Get some information on the spot where the wallet was found. We'll select some people and head directly there. The fact that he was sending Kanao, the lead investigator, here meant that the chief had decided there was a possibility that the ODA was somehow implicit in the kidnapping. However, it felt as though, until the lead investigator whom he trusted had verified the evidence with his own eyes, he was still going to be skeptical about it. How'd it go? Seems HQ is sending reinforcements. I was ordered to investigate the area. Where was the wallet dropped? Around Takatsudo, apparently. This is Okinomiya. All the way over here, this is Hinamizawa. And even further upstream, way around here, is Takatsudo. Oishi explained where the wallet was found by pointing to locations on the map on the wall. This place, called Takatsudo, is even more remote than Hinamizawa was. There's hardly anybody living in the area around Takatsudo. It was deserted a long time ago. It's littered with abandoned houses, so it's really quite desolate around there. Oishi-san, did I ask you to guide me to Takatsudo? Yeah, I don't mind. You can't really get in and out of Hinamizawa as you please by yourself, after all. Of course, I'll have to make you wear the cap and mask again. That Oishi had agreed to accompany was very reassuring. If Sato-san's info was to be believed, my cover had been blown. I wasn't sure if the villagers had realized that the fresh meat dispatched public safety was the tourist that had visited the village yesterday. In other words, me. But deciding they hadn't noticed would have been overly optimistic. If an cursory thought, Takatsudo, where the wallet was found, couldn't be ruled out as a hiding spot for the kidnappers. The Takatsudo area didn't have any residential buildings, nor was it along a highway. There wasn't a reason for even the locals to go out of their way to visit it. It was exactly what you would call a long-forgotten ghost town at the end of the road. Couldn't ask for a better place to hold a kidnapped grandson. Also, couldn't get to Takatsudo without passing through Hinamizawa first. Those several conditions made the area all the more important. I couldn't brush it off any longer. No longer any doubt that the ODA, or somebody hired by them, were involved in the kidnapping. If that was the case, the fact that this wallet was found might have already been leaked to them. They even knew so much as how the Public Safety Division was operating. In case that the wallet could be something they didn't know. In that case, there was a possibility that the enemy was lying in wait. Dive alone into enemy territory surrounded by enemy territory, to say the least, required an amount of courage, nay, recklessness, that I just did not have. Without your company, Oishi-san, I wouldn't be able to step into the village so easily. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Honestly, I thought you would ask for more money. If we're being honest, Hinamizawa isn't exactly a place I like to go. I'd at least appreciate if you paid for cab fare. Still, it's not a request I can refuse from a friend that's played at the same table as me. Wishi grinned as he pounded me on the back. It struck me that he just didn't want to jump ship, rather than having any sort of sense of duty towards his job. Even so, that didn't really matter. Right now, I really appreciated the gesture. Well then, we hurry up and get going? The enemy knew that the police had obtained the wallet. They would probably have moved the hostage to a different place. There wasn't a moment to lose. Oishi, without regard to the fact that we were about to head out, began to remove his jacket. What are you doing? Just a precaution. You want me to poke the beehive to get your honey. I have to be rather well prepared, you see. You want to put one on too? What Oishi pulled from the drawer below the desk was a stab-proof vest. I would also ask another officer, at least one other. Let's see. Okay. We're gonna... Honestly, let's see. Chapter 4. This could not too